Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode featuring Steve and Steve from NFLGamePicker.com. And unfortunately, we don't have Bryce, Eddie, or Chris with us today. But besides the fact is, we're moving on to the divisional round. And sad news is, I lost the lead on Eddie. To sum up the leaderboard, Eddie is in first place with 174.88 overall record. I'm right behind him, 173.89 record. Following me is Bryce, 168.94. And then Chris made some ground, but it's going to be real hard. He's going to need to go full sweep, and everyone else is going to have to go down to really make some big ground, 163.99. And what about you, Steve?
I'm currently sitting at 177 and 85. I went 4-2 last week. I was a little disappointed in Seattle. I thought they were going to pull it off, and the Rams came in and took them out.
Yeah, Seattle was, I feel like, the one of the biggest stunners. I was also surprised with Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh game just got off to a real bad start. Obviously came out hot in the second half. And I said Pittsburgh, like I was talking to my friends and I told them Pittsburgh needs to have a big second half in order to even do anything relative to making a comeback. And they did to an extent, but I mean that first quarter was literally just a backbreaker for them. So that was unfortunate.
That was one of the craziest quarters of football I have ever seen. Now, given I'm totally not a Pittsburgh fan, so I loved every second of it. But yeah, I had never seen anything like it. It was crazy. I was like every time I look away, they're up by another touchdown. It's like, man, this is insane.
It was funny. I was picking up some food from a sports bar, and then I from the outside I hear like the announcers, and I hear them scoring. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll just focus on when I get home. I get home and it's like 21-0, and it's like a couple minutes in the first quarter. I'm like, what did I just miss? Right. But I saw the highlights and stuff, and that was crazy. What about your Ravens? The Ravens,
they pulled it off, and I said it was going to come down to whether or not we could stop Derrick Henry, and I think it was 18 carries, 40 yards. Yeah, so I'd say they did quite a job of doing that.
Yeah, Derrick Henry was pretty much shut down. Defense was there, and then how do you feel about Marcus Peters stomping on the on the Tennessee Titans?
I'm not a fan. Like I've heard some people were like, "Yeah, that's great, poetic justice," but I guess I'm a high road guy. Like, they didn't need to dance on our logo. We didn't need to do that back. I can see why they did it, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no, it was. I feel like at least he did it at the right time. Like if you would have gotten that interception early on in the game, I don't feel like you do that then. You do that when you pretty much seal the game with pretty much a game-winning interception. So.
Right.
That was huge.
Even then, though, there were still 2 minutes left. Like, I don't know. Do that when the game's over if you're going to do it. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of showboating, especially before the clock hits 0.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And then let's talk about the other 3 games. We had Indianapolis, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Washington, and Chicago, New Orleans. Those are the 3 games I got right. And within those 3 games, I like those were the teams that you felt like, all right, these are the teams that are going to win. The Colts and Bills could have been a gimme because the Colts have had a pretty good season, but kind of snuck into the wild card spot there at the end of the year. But besides that, you kind of expected the Bears not to really do much against Saints. And then when it comes to the Buccaneers versus Washington, I mean, I feel like if Washington had more of an ample quarterback, maybe they would have had a better chance. But besides that, I mean, Tampa is who they are. And, I mean, Washington didn't go out without a fight, though.
Yeah, they put up a nice fight during that game. I thought it was competitive. I did watch a little bit of the Bears-Saints game. That one was not competitive at all. At one point, my sister texted me, and she's like, yeah, you got to turn on the Nickelodeon version. And I don't have cable, so like I had to go find like a stream of it online somewhere. And like at least they tried to make it entertaining. But yeah, what a crap game for, especially like Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. They're one of my favorite broadcasting duos. And I'm like, man, how did you guys get assigned to this game?
For real. No, yeah, definitely. I did watch a majority of the Nickelodeon broadcast, and it was pretty good. It was, I get what they were trying to do with it, trying to get younger fans to get all on board with watching the NFL. And something I saw which was really cool is Kurt Warner, his son. If you guys don't know who Kurt Warner is, he's a legendary quarterback, won the Super Bowl with the Rams, and greatest show on turf. And then, so he was watching the game with his son, and his son never, ever wants to watch games with him. And I found that pretty cool. And it was just, dropping little tidbits of information. They had little young Sheldon explaining some of the penalties and stuff like that. the biggest part of that broadcast was definitely having Nate Burleson a part of it, because I feel like if you don't have Nate Burleson on that broadcast, a lot of people would not have as much interest in watching it. So I feel like
Right.
the NFL did a good part there, but we'll see what happens if they start expanding to more networks. I know they have a potential deal with Amazon along the way, so let's see what goes on there.
Yeah, I'll admit my favorite games to watch during the season are actually the ones that are on Amazon because it's so easy to stream. And without having a cable subscription, it's tough for me to get some of mine. I have to do some jerry rigging and remotely stream off a DVR and stuff like that from another place. But I mean, yeah, it's nice to have some of them that you just hit stream and then know the game is right there.
Yeah,
I've been telling my friends and stuff, like if the NFL would offer a subscription where you could pay to stream every game, sort of like what they have through DirecTV, I would buy it. I think a lot of people would buy it, and I just feel like they're totally missing the mark on that.
yeah, because they used to have something like that with the DirecTV partnership that they had with the Sunday Ticket, and then that kind of stopped. And then after that, your only real option is having NFL Red Zone, and then NFL Game Pass doesn't even really do much for you because you have to wait till like the game's over.
Yep.
And yeah, you can see the all 22 angle and all this other stuff, but like if you feel like you're paying for that, you should be able to stream at least your favorite team, especially like I hate when I'm like traveling and I can't watch my favorite team from out of
Yep.
town, you know. So that's the thing that hurts a lot when you're trying to watch NFL games.
Well, and baseball does it so well. They've got that MLB pass. Was my roommate in college had it, and he used to stream all the Red Sox games, even though they were never on local TV. And I'm like, man, the NFL's totally missing this. Like they could do something similar and make bank. But yet here we are. I mean, there must be some kind of non-compete in the TV deals that doesn't let them do it.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the games at hand. The divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Uh, how'd you feel for lastly? How'd you feel about having 6 games on Wild Card Weekend?
I was okay with it. It seemed a bit much. I think the real issue where they ran into problems actually was that New Orleans Chicago game because it wasn't competitive. So the people who were watching back to back to back, like what are you going to go do for 3 hours while this game, like, because obviously everybody wanted to see the late game, and that one ended up being pretty exciting. But I mean, yeah, it's tricky to have that much, because like you have to go away and do something else if they're not competitive. So I guess they're flirting with it by potentially adding that seventh playoff team too. I mean, you may or may not get a good team in the door. So I would say in the AFC side, that probably paid off. Colts were decent. On the NFC side, not so much. Sorry,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Um, yeah, I don't even really want to talk about the Bears. What happened to them? Because I mean, the Bears were hanging around in there, and then just the offense could not execute. The receivers weren't really doing well. But let's move on past that. Let's talk about the teams that are playing this weekend. We have the Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers. That's the first game we have on Saturday for a 35 kickoff. First game at Lambeau Field in the postseason this year, and I got to go with the Chiefs as Aaron Rodgers has been having a sensational year, and I think he continues it. Jared Goff still battling that thumb injury. The Rams, Sean McVay is kind of being secretive, like, oh, we're not sure who's starting yet, but I mean, John Walford, I believe that's his name. He got taken out of the game against Seattle, so I don't see him playing this week. So definitely has to be Jared Goff.
Yeah, it wasn't even taken out of the game. He left in an ambulance.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's pretty crazy. So yeah, with if Los Angeles's offense was more consistent, I would say this would be a closer game. The one matchup I am looking forward to is Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. They've both been playing at an exceptional level. That's going to be super fun to watch, especially me being a defensive guy. Like I kind of root for corners. Hard to root for Jalen because he runs his mouth a little bit, but at the same time, like if I had to pick an NFC team, the Packers are fun to watch. So I think I'm going to have to go Green Bay as well this week.
Yeah. And then let's see who we have for Bryce and Eddie. Both of them are going with Green Bay. And knowing Chris, I'm assuming he's not going to go with Green Bay. He hasn't made his selections yet, by the way. But if by the looks of it, if I know anything about Chris, he's not going to pick the Green Bay Packers. So now let's move on to the next game. We have the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. And I'll let you lead this one off, Steve. What do you think the Baltimore Ravens need to do to win this game?
I think it's going to come down like once again to defense. Except this time it's not so much stopping the run; it's going to be back end coverage. So if Marcus Peters and Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey can have themselves a game, then it's going to be really fun to watch. If not, they get burned over the top. It could be a long day. Offensively, I think Lamar's playing some of his best ball. We have a good shot there. If we can do our run, ball control offense, that's going to give us a good chance to win. But honestly, I think this is the game of the week for me. I mean, like, even as a fan, I'm still like right on the fence, like 50-50 shot. It could go either way. Actually, with going to school in upstate New York, I have a lot of friends who are Bills fans, and
Hmm.
it's so refreshing. Actually, like, you expect to get a bunch of, like, talking smack. They've all been so wholesome. They're like, yeah, if it's not us, I hope it's you. And it's like, I can't be mad at that. So yeah, either way, honestly, like, win or lose, I'll be happy with the result of this game. Now, if we had lost to Tennessee with all the bad blood there, I would have been upset. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I think they've outlived my expectations for the season. If it ends here, so be it. We'll look forward to next year. If not, then we'll see how far we can take it.
Yeah, definitely the Ravens definitely had a great run towards the end of the season too, because they looked like they were about to be on the edge of not making the playoffs, and then they go, I believe, on a 5 game winning streak to end off the season. If I'm not wrong, I know it's four, at
Yep.
least four.
Yeah, we
So
were
yeah,
6-5 coming into December, and ended the season 11-5, and then won again last week. So
hmm so that was definitely a turning point when you know things weren't looking so good. And what do you think of Lamar Jackson towards the end of last week's game? After the first quarter, he seemed to just light it up, not necessarily making too many big plays, but making the right plays. And that's what I also discussed with my friends. They were all like, Lamar didn't do so good. I'm like, all I saw was winning football. You don't need to make the big flashy plays all the time. You just need to make the plays out, make things work, get down the field, get points. However you can do it, just get it to win. And that's what I saw in Lamar Jackson doing last week against the Titans, especially in the second half.
he had one bonehead interception where the receiver was running an outside pattern and he threw him inside, and there the corner was. Ended up making a great catch. Other than that, though, I thought he played really well too. He's smart with where he put the ball, knew when to run versus when to pass. Like, this offense, I'll admit, can get too focused on one thing, whether it's passing or running. We have a tendency to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and all of a sudden he's either thrown the ball 50 times or we've run it 50 times. When we can stay in balance, they do pretty well. So I think we've got a chance against Buffalo again. I think it'll be pretty much a coin flip. I did end up picking the Ravens here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes Buffalo's way either.
Yeah, before I announce my pick, Bryce and Eddie are both going with the Bills. It's this one is like a really good coin flip game, like kind of like what you said. It's just like it could go either way, and if it had to come down to it, I have a little bit more faith in the Ravens defense than I do in the Bills defense. The Bills defense hasn't looked too crazy. Obviously, they limited the Dolphins to 26 points when they scored 56. But like, I mean, at that point, you're just playing. Let's get this game going and let's get out of here. But throughout the year, they haven't impressed me too much. Obviously, Tre'Davious White is tremendous cover corner, and their secondary is nothing to be messed with. But what really worries me is their front seven, and I feel like that's what's going to be the difference maker in this game. And I'm going to go with the Ravens. And like I mentioned earlier, Chris hasn't made his picks yet, but hopefully by the time I finish editing, I'll have all his picks here. All right, let's move to the first Sunday game. We have a 3:05 kickoff. We have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cleveland Browns, who just stunned the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, do you think Cleveland can stun the Kansas City Chiefs? Or is Chase Claypool right?
Well, I think a lot of the motivating factor for Cleveland last week was some of the juju talk about the Browns or the Browns. I haven't heard any of that noise out of Kansas City, so I mean, I don't know if they need extra motivation or not, but I do find that Kansas City team arrogant. So, like, I almost want the Browns to pull it off again, but I don't know if they got it in them. That being said, I said they didn't have it in them last week, and they came out in the first quarter and absolutely schooled Pittsburgh. So maybe it could happen. Crazier
and,
things have happened.
and it could be interesting. Let's say the Ravens and the Browns do win. The Browns host the Ravens for the AFC Championship back at Cleveland. So,
We would actually host them.
oh, you're right. You are
Yeah,
right.
because we were the 5 and they were the 6, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So that could really turn things upside down for the Browns. If both of these two teams win, the Ravens and the Browns win, I I don't see the Browns beating the Ravens. But I don't want to see I actually kind of want to see the Browns stun the Chiefs, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Patrick Mahomes, that offense, Tyreek Hill, I mean, they have so many weapons. Travis Kelsey, the list can go on and on. And the offense of the Chiefs is just unmatchable. I mean, you can put probably one of the best defenses in the league against them, and good luck. But you pretty much have to play a near perfect game defensively to stay within a fighting's chance of this Kansas City team. I mean, look what happened when the Dolphins played them late in the season. Um, 3 interceptions, a 30-yard sack, and then the Dolphins could barely even manage to hold their, I think it was like a 10-point lead. And then Kansas City just goes on how they do, just scoring, scoring, scoring. So uh, from first hand seeing it happen to my favorite team, I could tell you that I have a lot more faith in Kansas City's offense than I do in the whole Cleveland Browns team. But good win last week, but let's see what happens this week. It's very doubtful.
Yeah, I think I have to go Kansas City on this one. And the main reason is just how quickly that offense can score. It's unbelievable. Like you could run the ball really well with Chubb and with Hunt. And then, if you leave 5 minutes on the clock, that's enough for Patrick Mahomes to go down and score 3 touchdowns. It's crazy. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to, can Cleveland dominate that time of possession and be effective on defense? If they can do both of those things, they've got a shot. But yeah, there's never enough points when you're playing Mahomes.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Just having the time of possession, because Cleveland, like you said, time of possession, if they can run the ball efficiently, their offense could keep them in this game. But if Kansas City defense, because they have some good players there. Obviously, their key player as of right now is Tyrann Mathieu on the defensive side of the ball, and you can also include Chris Jones into that conversation. But I feel like Tyrann Mathieu is a little bit more of an impact player because he can do pretty much it all, and he's going to be a big difference maker if Cleveland's offense can, whether or not if they can get going or not. Um, and let's also mention Bryce and Eddie's picks. They're both going Cleveland. Let's go to the last game. We had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints, 6:30 kickoff, and Breeze versus Brady, 3 of the season. I saw this funny tweet of someone talking about they should stream this game on the History Channel because they're calling pretty much Tom Brady and Drew Brees old. And then Tom Brady and his media team like made a mock up of like a picture of them both like with gray hair and stuff. It was pretty funny. But what are your thoughts on this game? I really like seeing these two quarterbacks playing, especially in the playoffs, because this is something we've never seen, especially with Brady being in the AFC and Drew always being in the NFC after he left the Chargers.
Yeah, I think this is what I was looking forward to when I heard that he was going to Tampa, is that you'd get to see these two match up against each other potentially 3 times, and here we are. I was a little disappointed with how it played out in the regular season. I thought the Buccaneers would put up more of a fight, and it pretty much seemed like New Orleans just wiped the floor with them both times, especially that one, I think, in Tampa, where it was like 38-0 or 38-3 or something by the end. So yeah, I guess I was expecting it to be more competitive throughout. I'm kind of hoping that we finally get that this time around, and that those two will match up great with each other. We'll see. I mean, I did pick New Orleans here just because they're home. They've been rolling. Kamara's playing really well. I'm inconsistent feeling on that Tampa Bay defense. I mean, I've seen them have a great game against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers earlier this year, and then I've seen them have a turd game against New Orleans earlier this year. So I mean, we'll see which team shows up, and that was kind of what I said last week about Washington, and even that was competitive. I mean, if New Orleans shows up and they're on full cylinders, it's going to be really tough to beat them.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like when New Orleans offense gets going, their defense feeds off of it a lot. They're like, all right, we have the lead. Let's play a little bit more aggressive, and like they capitalize off of that. They don't really do too much when it comes to forcing turnovers or anything, but they get the out on downs and get punts and stuff like that. And I see this possibly happen again. Do I feel like it's going to be like you said earlier, like that 30 something game to 3? Nah, I don't think that's going to be the case. It's the playoffs, and Tom Brady's going to bring his A game. Uh, Mike Evans is still kind of battling that knee injury that he suffered on the last week of the year. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that receiving core moving forward with Tom Brady, obviously throwing them the ball. But I just have more faith in the Saints offense. And then obviously, like I mentioned earlier, having that defense feed off of it, especially in the Superdome. I'm going with the Saints here. And then to mention also, Bryce and Eddie are going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I
So
can't tell
any
if I can't tell if they're doing those picks just to try to make up ground, or if they truly believe, especially the Cleveland one.
Yeah, no, no one went with Cleveland on this one. I'm teeter tottering, but I'm gonna stay with Kansas City. I'm a little bit more confident in that. But besides that, they went Green Bay, Buffalo, Kansas City, and then Tampa. Both of them went for each of the same teams. Uh, I don't know why they think Tampa is. I would favor New Orleans to win this game, especially being back in New Orleans. So, um, especially how the season series has gone, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. I mean, it's hard to beat them twice in a row, and I can imagine beating them 3 times in a row is going to be even harder. But I think they can do it. I mean, you've seen so many glimmers of success, especially offensively from the Saints team, and that's been the story of the Saints team for the past couple of years. Really good offense, defense is good enough to keep them in games, and as of what I've seen this year so far, the Saints offense is a lot better than it's been in years past. So I have a lot of high hopes.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of gadget play that he's got cooked up that Tampa Bay hasn't seen yet. I wouldn't be surprised at all with Sean Payton.
Definitely, I definitely see Taysom Hill making some key impact plays. Alvin Kamara, Mike Thomas is getting kind of reasserted to the lineup. He got his first touchdown in almost over a year in the wild card game, so it was interesting to see. But anything else you want to add on to the divisional round games, or anything else you want to mention that you didn't get to from last week?
Well, I feel like there's an elephant in the room, and that we said last week that if the Ravens won, I could come back, and Bryce said he wouldn't be here, and he's not here.
That is true. And there was also something else you mentioned to me about that series, especially the playoff history
Oh
between those two
yeah, yeah,
teams.
yeah. And I almost brought this up last week because I was gonna, see how it might sway picks. With this game, with the Ravens winning, the visiting team is now 5-0 in the playoff history of the Ravens and Titans, which is just absolutely crazy. So both times, actually all 3 times that we've been there, we've won, and then the 2 times that they've played in Baltimore, they've won. So yeah, it's just sort of an unbelievable streak that's still going on.
Yeah, and that's one of those interesting facts that no one really picks up until it actually happens. Like heading into this game, I'm pretty sure not too many people were speaking on the fact that all right, each of these two teams have won when they're the opposing the visitor at the playoff game. So that's something new. Um, yeah, I mean we kind of touched base on everything. Rams kind of stunned Seattle, especially with Jared Goff coming in late to relieve. Also, Bills kind of did what they did. Ravens, they've performed pretty good. Browns surprised a lot of people, and then the Buccaneers and Saints are just where everyone expected. So now the only other two teams that weren't in action last week are the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City Chiefs. Do you feel like them not playing this week, having the only one team bye from each conference makes a difference in this year's playoffs, or not really?
It might. I don't know. I'm torn on the whole idea of rest, and some of that is last year. We had the first round bye and then just came out completely flat against Tennessee. I'm not a fan of having the week off. I'd rather just keep the routine up, do the same thing week in week out. Basically, if we ever get the first round bye, I'd rather do full practices all week. Don't give them off. Like keep it going. So yeah, I don't know how much of a factor that'll be. More so for injuries than anything else. But I'm not really aware that either of those two teams were banged up that bad in a way that would make a difference with just this week.
Yeah, from what I know of the Packers, they are dealing with their one of their tackles, Ryan. I forgot his name. I just had it on my head.
I know their left tackle was out for the season either way.
David
Uh,
David Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari, that's it.
Yeah, he's out for the season, and they have a former Dolphins tackle, Billy Turner, who when he was on the offense was pretty unreliable. He's been kind of bouncing around from team to team, and somehow he's found his way onto the Green Bay Packers, and so he's starting a playoff game this upcoming week. So that was something I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan Clark mentioned it on Get Up this morning, and he was saying this guy is going to be an impact player, whether he likes it or not. It's going to either be bad or good for him, but he's going to be a big difference maker on whether or not this game goes good or bad for the Green Bay Packers. And I can agree because you want to keep your quarterback as clean as possible. I mean, and especially if you get hit in the cold, it does not feel good. You're getting thrown to the ground every other play. So that's something that to be scared of with this Rams defense. Obviously, having Aaron Donald on the defensive line is no joke. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I did see some stats on Aaron Rodgers. Whenever he's being pressured, his accuracy goes way down, and I think their coaching, I think, has some record against him where he's it's like 54% as accurate as he is whenever they're not getting after him, and that makes sense. But then I also saw that Los Angeles was like 0-6, covering the spread against Green Bay their last 6 games. So I was like, yeah, I feel pretty confident about picking Green Bay for this one.
Definitely. All right, Steve. I think that's about it for the divisional round. Make sure to tune in next week where we'll have the conference championship round. And then after that, we'll have a week off and then we'll have the Super Bowl. So getting very, very close to the end of the NFL year. And this is one of my favorite times of the year, even though unfortunately my team has not been participating much ever since I've been a fan. But your team is in there. And I feel like when you guys go to playoffs, it's so exhilarating and so much fun to just experience that. Just especially in a year like this year that not much has been going on, can't really go out and celebrate, but at least you have something to be proud of, and that's pretty cool.
The one thing that I'm going to be upset about, though, and I've had season tickets to the Ravens since 2009, and we've never hosted the AFC Championship game. Last year was supposed to be the year we finally got like a hosted AFC Championship game. And then we had to come out flat in the divisional round and blow it. So if Cleveland and we both win, there will be an AFC Championship game in Baltimore, and I won't be allowed to attend it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If we make it there, that's good enough. I don't have to be there.
Hey, if you guys make it to the AFC Championship and make it to the Super Bowl, Tampa's going to be having some fans. I know those tickets are going to be outrageous. So, but yeah, Buffalo actually allowed fans because they hadn't allowed fans all season. They allowed them to last week's game, and they're going to be allowing them to this week's game as well. So that's something that is interesting. Some teams changing their rules or getting some things to go their way so they can allow fans at games. And I feel like, especially for a team like Buffalo, winning the division first time in over 20 years, definitely having to be able to host a playoff game. I bet their fans were pretty hyped to go.
I'll tell you who it's not good for, though. It's not good for the folding table industry because we've got the Bills Mafia. They're a crazy bunch. I went to a game there in 2007, and the Bills Mafia is very real.
That is one of the stadiums that I have to go to. Like, if I can't go to any other stadium, I feel like that's one of the stadiums I gotta go to, especially when the Dolphins are playing the Bills. And I just want to see a bunch of the Bill Mafia just jump through tables because those are a wild bunch.
Yep, they're crazy, but also really, really friendly. I mean, even up there, and it's not like Philadelphia where you're going to get batteries thrown at you and snowballs and everything else. Like, they couldn't be happier to see opposing fans, except maybe Patriots fans wouldn't be super welcome in Orchard Park.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. The Bills fan base is actually a really good one. Like you said, really good people. I feel like they're really kind-hearted. I mean, you saw what happened when Andy Dalton got the Ravens out of the playoffs, and then the Bills evidently got in that year, and they donated a bunch of money to his foundation and stuff. And same thing happened recently when Josh Allen's grandmother died. They donated to the foundation associated with her, or I believe him. And that's something that a lot of fan bases won't really do, and that's something cool to see.
Yeah, I was really, really impressed with that. Even though I was heartbroken by that result, I was at that game where Andy Dalton threw that pass on 4th down. It was like 4th and 17. He throws a touchdown, and then that basically cost us our season. But at the same time, like when you saw, the outpouring of Bills fans, you're like, okay, I'm not quite as mad about it anymore. Yeah, still haven't forgiven Andy for it, but at least the Bills fans are okay.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that pain. All right, Steve. So that's about it. Like I mentioned earlier, tune into next week's episode, and then not only that, the Super Bowl episode, and that's about it for the divisional round. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Steve.
See you.
Peace.